Good evening. It's 5:31, and I'm going to call a special meeting to order and say this. Welcome. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act. At this time, we will be going into an executive session for approximately 1 hour. The purpose of this executive session is to evaluate the qualifications of applicants for public employment and to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation and the legal or financial risk of a course of action. It is 6:30, and I'm going to call the special meeting to order. And just some general housekeeping, as we always do. Dr. Jewel Harmon, the Chief Accountability Officer, will be attending the meeting via Zoom. So we're on to 1.03, our roll call. Vice President Benham.
Present.
Director Farah.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
And of course, I'm here. I'd like to ask Vice President Benham to say the pledge, please, and our audience to join us.
I pledge allegiance
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome the audience to the meeting. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act. We thank those of you who have come to the meeting in person and those who are viewing live stream. I'd now like to ask Director Clark to read the land acknowledgement, please.
We
Director
acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you, Director Clark. We're on to 2.0, Board of Directors discussion and approval. And just before we get into this, I want to do a little housekeeping items here, or a little background on this. We selected 4 candidates for application for our District 2 position that was open because we had a director resign. And we openly stated those 4 candidates. We have now some challenges with some of the candidates because we're going to discuss about one of the particular candidates is not going to be available on the Wednesday for the actual interview. And it's been kind of standard, and I'm sure you're aware with all, positions that are open for employment, we want it to be equal. So the applicants should all, one right after the other, be interviewed on the same night. So we want to kind of entertain a suggestion of, do we want to keep with that Wednesday night and only have, certain amount of candidates that we talked about? Or do we want to change the date to Thursday so this person can also interview with the original candidates that we had? In addition to that, we've had one applicant that has decided to decline our acceptance of him in that position. And so it opens up the possibility for some other discussion on, do we wish to add some of the other candidates or not? So now I'd like to turn that over for a discussion with our Board of Directors and potential motions or discussions. And probably need a motion on the floor on one of the particular items to start it out with. I'll entertain a motion.
Can I move that we move the interview dates to Thursday, September 1st?
Second?
A discussion.
Yeah, yes, you mentioned that candidate could not make it, so it makes sense that not to have, for purpose of equity, one candidate interviewed and the rest of them can watch that and then be able to then have the questions that we will ask. So for equity reasons, it'll be best that we move it so that every candidate can be interviewed the same day.
Further discussion. Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote that it has been moved and seconded that we change our application interviews date from Wednesday to September 1st, Thursday, so all the applicants can have the opportunity to be interviewed on Thursday, September 1st. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions? The motion carries. Now, we also need to entertain another motion and regarding if we want to, go on and discuss with more applicants. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'd moved to make up for the one missing applicant, the name of Matthew Stoner.
I second.
Discussion. Do you want to speak to your motion?
Well,
I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, we had four candidates, and there are some other people that, if we had more time, I'd be willing to discuss, but I'm just saying at this point, I would like to see Matthew Stoner as added to the list.
Well, just for clarification, in our discussion when I started out, we had four candidates. When we went through the application process to call them and tell them that they were selected as a finalist, we just received word finally that one of the candidates chose not to go on. So that takes us down to three candidates. We can add to that to make a fourth if we wanted to. And Mr. Clark it has been moved and seconded that we add Matthew Stoner to that. Is there further discussion? I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Yeah, and again, I just want to acknowledge, I appreciate the sacrifice of all the other applicants that did in fact put their name into the mix, because it took time and effort, and clearly they care about the Kent School District, so I just want to say thank you to them.
Any further discussion?
I mean, I was able to look at his application, also one of the candidates, and thinking about him. So, yeah, I have no objection.
I mean, we don't have to have four candidates, so I'm okay with having three. So, to me, it's fine. We can have a fourth, but I think our policies say we can have three, and so I'm okay with three.
All right, any further discussion? All right. It has been moved and seconded to add Mr. Matthew Stoner to the applicant list for interviews for a finalist. All those in favor? Oh, we are going to do this, okay.
This one.
Okay. I'm going to, excuse me, we're going to have to go through and ask individual board members. That's the process. Thank you, Vice President Bento. All right, I'm going to call for the vote for the nomination for the finalist number one, and that was Matthew Stoner. At this point, I want to ask Mr. Brockfell, do I need to ask if we have any further finalists before I proceed with Mr. Stoner?
Paul Brockvogel, General Counsel for the Kent School District. Madam President, the answer is in the negative. You do not.
Okay,
The motion was supplants the nomination,
okay.
but it sounds like there's sort of a hybrid going on, but I think the record's pretty clear what you're doing.
Okay.
What you're doing is adding another candidate.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're trying to do this right. Honestly, we are.
And just to further discussions, because the reason why we're adding the fourth is just in case another one drops out, like we had a candidate that just dropped off, right? Just in case, we just want to keep the pool. Is that, Paul, is that, okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding, that
Yeah.
there was a candidate that dropped out. You've moved it, and now you're adding one more candidate for an interview on Thursday.
Okay.
All right. All right, I'm going to go through the directors. First of all, Vice President Bento, what is your vote on Mr. Stoner?
No.
Director Clark, what is your vote on finalist number?
Aye.
Director Farah, what is your vote on Mr. Stoner?
Aye.
And I also am voting for Mr. Stoner, so it looks like all those in abstention? Well, no, we went through that, excuse me. It looks like Mr. Stoner has been added as the fourth applicant. Okay. All right. The interviews now will take place for everybody, if you want to make note of this, Thursday, September 1st at 5 p.m. So now we're on to resolution, or 2.02, resolution number 1630, injunctive relief against Kent Education Association. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we adopt resolution number 1630, injunctive relief against Kent Education Association.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
This is painful for all of us. As a member of the Board of Directors, it's my job to represent the households of this community. Realistically, they have jobs, they have kids, they have work schedules that have to suddenly deal with the additional problems of childcare and the rest of it. There are issues that I struggle with. I mean, number one, it's our job also to support the people in the buildings. Now, obviously, the principals and their ability to even supply the services that are required by law. The faculty, because of course they are vital to the entire operation. The other staff, and that's where one of the other costs of this whole process come into play. Classified don't work by an extensive contract, they work by per hour. And every day that in effect kids are not in the buildings and school is not in process, they can't get on with their lives until, in fact, that gets moving. And that's not an adequate explanation. We need to respect the process. And that means that when we sit down at the bargaining table, that both sides, in fact, put out their needs and try and reach that range of compromise that we can all live with. The board members don't get directly involved in that process other than to offer some distinct parameters. The catch here is that we all want the system to work, and we don't want staff to be unsettled because they think they're not being treated fairly. That's difficult for us too. So, not my favorite thing, but I'm just trying to move the process forward.
I just wanted to speak to this motion and just take time to reflect a parent who has had 4 children in this district and went through last time when there was a strike, and how I was so frustrated and didn't understand. Many parents of color don't understand the process. They don't. And they have kids that are home, and some of them, their only meal they have is at the school. This district is more than 70% kids of color. It pains me to see them home. There's no winner. I am sitting before you because of a teacher that took time to make sure that I have the ability to believe in myself as an engineer at the AT&T and become a technical person, because a math teacher took that time. I think if you cut me, there will be union coming out. That's how I believe in unions. And this to me is the most hardest thing I have to do in my life. It is not a decision that I made lightly. I know I'm going to be losing a lot of friends, but I can tell you, I can look myself in the mirror to make this decision, because more than 80% of this district teachers are white. And I can tell you that is not something that I feel there's something else going on than what appears to be. And a person of color, I need to really stand up for those kids. And I know the decision I make tonight is a decision I can live with. Thank you.
I'm not in favor of this resolution, and there's a couple reasons why. And I appreciated the district posting on the website stuff about bargaining, because I wanted some information, because I feel like a lot of the information has been at the bargaining table, not necessarily as directors. So we're not part of the bargaining process. So yet we vote on things like this, but we're not included in the bargaining process. And so a lot of, I should say directly involved in the bargaining process. So I feel like a lot of what we discuss is faith-based. And so it's like we have to have faith in our staff doing their jobs. We have to have faith that the process is working. We have to have, and ultimately, from what I've heard and what I hear is a lot of like the struggles with bargaining and what's happening at the bargaining table. And one of the things I'm going to be totally frank, because I think that's important and honest, is like I saw on the website that like we're matching Renton, all these things match Renton, but we don't match Renton, and here's why. And a couple things. One, I teach in Renton, and I saw the proposal, and that's great. And I saw some stuff flying around social media, and one of the things is, in Renton, we've spent thousands of dollars doing training on interest-based bargaining, which we do not have here. We do not use interest-based bargaining here. And interest-based bargaining is a completely different approach to the bargaining process. And so with interest-based bargaining, the district and the union would work together to identify the needs that exist, and you bargain those needs. And that's why it's called interest-based, because it's not positional. It's like, I want salary increases, I want this. It's based on what the two parties have in common. And so that's one of the things. And so Renton has spent thousands of dollars and training. They've built trust, they've built community support to do this bargaining process. That has not happened here. So I think that putting that proposal out there and saying it mirrors Renton, the numbers might mirror Renton, but the process and whatnot, how Renton got there, we settled in early July, and because of this process. And so I think we need to kind of look at that and understand that the processes have been different. They're not the same. And so that's one thing. And ultimately, like, and people might disagree because there's like lawyers in the room and stuff, is I feel that bargaining needs to happen at the table. And I feel like this is a way that bargaining is happening in the courtroom. And I know that specifics and whatnot is not happening in the courtroom, but I feel like filing an injunction is a way, it's an intimidation process to scare. And I feel like that is a tactic that is bargaining. And so I feel that it's a little manipulation in the process. And again, that's Joe's opinion. It's not the board's opinion, it's Joe's opinion. And just even things like, posting things on the website when there's been no process before of posting information or releasing information from the district. And it feels like a process. It feels like it's not happening at the table. And so, and again, I'm not in this process, so I don't know that some of the things that are happening behind the scenes. And that makes me feel weird as a board director that some of those things are happening that I don't know about. And ultimately, it's because I'm not at the table. I'm not a bargainer, right? That's not my role as a school board director. And so, and one of the things, if anything, regardless of what's happened during this process, the community loves educators. The community is in favor of our teachers and support staff. And that is very evident in what we've seen across social media and around the city. And I think when you take a look at that and see and hear from educators of what they need, again, because I'm not bargaining, like I've driven around and, I live right by Mill Creek, so I've stopped and talked to staff. Not about bargaining, just to check in, bring water, bring snacks. I know this is challenging for the community, and it's challenging for the district, and it's challenging for our labor partners, but ultimately, it's really important we think about the needs of our educators. I always say, and this is something I hear a lot, is that staff working conditions are our students' learning conditions. And so if our students, or if our staff aren't getting what they need, our students definitely are not gonna get what they need. And I think that filing an injunction, forcing educators into class is gonna cause a lot of hardship and a lot of animosity, more animosity, because we have a lot of relationship building that we need to work on in this district. And so I do not agree with this injunction.
Well, I've done a lot of thinking and I actually prepared some thoughts. When you take on this position, you realize you are responsible for making many decisions for kids and staff. You do the homework and policy work and gather as much data and best practices that you can. You do your assigned task in the position you hold. You try to be open and transparent and honest in performing those duties. You work with varying personalities on the board, staff, students, and community partners and community. Unlike many who have stated in the past that this is really a volunteer position, I knew going into this position and the climate in the district that this was going to be a job, a very hard job. With, yes, to be completely transparent, there is a stipend maxing out at $4,800 for the year. And usually, I reach that peak about 3 months into it. And of course, I didn't take this on for the money. And all the communication that's charged with the president to do, that's their ultimate job, none of those hours are even hours that you can count toward your job. And that's a very important thing to fulfill, is the communication line. I'm not mentioning this for pity or sympathy or whatever. I mention it as groundwork for what else I'm about to say. So be fair and at least recognize that for what it is. We are at a very pivotal point in going forward in this district. I ask you, the community, which is staff, community partners, parents, students, to give I did this at a meeting, to give our newly selected superintendent a chance. You may have disagreed with that selection, but many did not. They were in favor of it. Have you truly done that? This is for each of you to answer deep in your heart. How much of the anger and distrust is a holdover from the past? How much of your pent-up frustrations has come from the pandemic? And still, the results and the Ptsd from which is still not totally controlled? That is for each of you to answer. I know from speaking with my daughter, the teacher of 27 years, this is the first time thinking, I want to change careers. And this is from a teacher that was a regional Washington State Teacher of the Year in 2019-2020, a 2009 National High School Physical Education Teacher of the Nation, awarded by NASP. The definition of PTSD, a disorder in which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. The condition may last for months or years with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma, accompanied by intense emotional and physical reaction. It is my deep belief that whether we know it or not, some of the happenings and dealings with the contract have lingering over the last 2 years of major change and trauma. Trauma to our kids and our staff. Many may have been asked to do what was not humanly possible, but you did it. No money or words will completely heal that. It is also my opinion that bringing into our district refugees and immigrants is wonderful, but many come with many needs of atrocities that happen to them in countries that were not the United States of America. That changes the level of need in our schools. It is also my opinion that right here in the United States of America, our kids have faced undue trauma from events where racial tension and sexual choices have not been settled and have bubbled over into our schools. Years of human services and mental health have gone neglected. Sure, there are some of you looking at me right now and saying, why in the world is she going on and on about all this? I get it. I hear you. More important, I see you. The vote tonight is much more about these issues than I have time to go into, but it is paramount to talk about it tonight. Healing and the future are where I want to go. Resolution 1630 gives the superintendent power in the courts to get teachers back to work. Is striking illegal? You know the answer. Have you and some posting, there's been a lot of people out there posting illegal acts that the board has been doing for months or years. But none of that has actually been proven in the courts. And there have been challenges on that on several occasions, and it looks like there's going to be another one. But it's never been proven in the courts. But you know striking is illegal. A resolution does not rule on that. It is already in the law. If the teachers and their union heads are smart people, and of course they are, they know it is against the law. So it becomes the question, why would a union and its members do something against the law? Does working stop negotiating a contract to get a fair solution? Does going back to work stop from getting a fair contract? I don't have the answer to those questions. It is imperative to get our students back to school and learning. Do parents need to have sustainable schedules for childcare so their work can be maintained and continued? Yes. Do kids that depend on meals at schools for their meals for that day need to have them? Yes. What helps parents to get back to a sustainable work schedule and kids get back to school with meals? It's getting our teachers back in schools teaching. We are at an impasse, and actions must start happening to move the needle. The word on the street is the bargaining team is not working with good faith with the union. The word I'm hearing is the union is not budging. Both sides agree on one thing. We need to get schools open and get teachers back to work. How we get there is part of the vote tonight. I believe both sides at the table have the answer to that, and even more. To me, the steps to healing is not in a resolution or a judge. Compromise is something I do not hear a lot of today. Kindness and grace are a word people use, but do not even practice to those with opposing views. We have a completely new board then, and soon another face will be added. We have a new superintendent. We have a new union rep and a new union president of the union. I consider all these people are there for the right reasons. What we don't have right now is compromise. and it takes two sides. I'm going to close with the parent's letter to me. I do not plan to identify that parent for very valid reasons, and I'm going to read the letter. It's part of it. While I do not support our teachers who provide so much more than education to our 4 children with special needs and IEPs, KSD and KEA negotiations are holding families like our hostage. Parents cannot work as childcare cannot be lined up in the last minute and unknown length fashion, and children are experiencing significant PTSD, anxiety, and increasing behavioral issues due to the unexpected delay of school that has no end date. And even worse than during the pandemic, no teachers are available to provide any kind of support to the kids during this time. In addition, so many children who count on school breakfasts and lunch, at least half of our district are going hungry. This negotiation process is actually damaging the children even more than they already have been, and they really don't need this right now. It is time to get these kids in school with a predictable routine that they can count on for the first time since the pandemic closed their schools. With the relationship between KSD and KEA being so tenuous over the current contract negotiations, we are facing well over a month-long strike if the injunction is not issued. Our children are watching, and what does this tell our children? That it is not about them, and that they do not matter, yet school should be about the opposite. Teaching children that they do matter and that they come first. We have had 4 school years that have been not normal and have significant unfair interruptions for our children. It is time to put the kids first. Get our children back in school where they deserve and very much need to be. Please vote for the resolution. How do we get to a solution and a better future is what I'm about. The vote tonight is not a victory or a solution for either side. There is absolutely no winner or loser here tonight. The honest answer here lies in each side must meet and compromise for our kids and the future. Each side must move. I am not at the table. Each of you know that are at the table. Whatever the outcome of this vote, start working together. My patience is close to an end. That will be reflective in my vote. Is there any further discussion? All right, I'm going to call for the motion. All those in favor of Resolution 1630 signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Nay.
Absolutely not. Nay.
Abstentions. It is a 2-2 vote. On a 2-2 vote, nothing is done. It is 7:04, and we are adjourned.